All right, we are live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Monday night chill stream. Had a stream sniper come in already. Come and go. So anyway, tonight is Monday night. Time for another chill stream. This is. I had so much this show that it's like show overload or show overload. That's stupid. But a lot of stuff. I had a ton of stuff to go through, and putting together some pieces, playing internet Sherlock Holmes. You know what I mean? My one of my hobbies, when I'm not delivering boxes, is to pretend I'm Sherlock Holmes, the world's smartest detective. Which I'm really not the world's smartest detective, but I occasionally tell myself, you know, what would you think if you were if somebody smarter than you was thinking about this? What would they think? And then I try to get myself up one level. But I was um, thinking about social media and all the stuff I see and what annoys me and what I like. And I was thinking about this guy, and I mentioned him last week, a couple of weeks ago. This guy, Dr. Breck, who was somehow deeply involved in these message boards that were radical politics message boards. And he, like from back in the days of no video on the internet, just people typing in long form posts and replies. So anyway, this guy, Dr. Breck, I was like, man, I haven't seen that guy in a while. I used to see his stuff occasionally pop up in my feed, and I didn't really watch it. So I said, let me go find this guy's channel. So I go find his channel, and um, there's no content there. All his videos are down. I don't know. He's gone dark or whatever you want to call it, or he's not. He doesn't have any content up. And he used to do some things. He used to do like stuff even dumber than I do. But he was largely tongue in cheek, I think, in a lot of ways. At any rate, so but there were a couple of playlists, and I looked in his playlist. I was like, well, what's this guy got for playlists? And there was a link to a channel called Bright Insight, which is either run by the Pentagon or the CIA or something like that. And even the host, he's a young white 30-something dude, skinny, millennial looking, but he served in Iraq. He was deployed in Iraq, and so he doesn't hide that. He's like, yeah, when I was in Iraq, this and that. And the channel is all. It's one of those super informative channels that tells you nothing. They give you every detail you need except what you need to understand what they're talking about. And of course, they're always leading you down some garden path to a worthless, pointless. Oh, there's evidence that the lost continent of Atlantis. That automatically means CIA video. The lost continent of Atlantis was really in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and well, a bunch of other stuff. But he had a video like the destruction of Iraq, the deliberate destruction of Iraqi cultural treasures, and he's talking about ISIS, this and that, and he shows himself next to this large carved relief, like this gate. Then there's like these well, it was a giant figure carved out of, I don't know, limestone that was like a giant bull with wings and the head of a man or whatever. And it showed him in his uniform with his rifle and everything, taking a picture from that back when he was deployed in Iraq. And then he showed a modern picture where the whole thing's been chipped away and destroyed. It's completely messed up. And I thought, well, we know who's doing that, right? We know who wants to destroy every culture except their own. So anyway, I was thinking about that, and there was a couple other videos. This guy mentioned something that sparked me. Oh yeah, he talked about this, and this was like just too good. Um, he talked about the internet's being uh, scrubbed as we speak. That there's less. The internet is being censored every day by Google and these other outfits. I'm like, yeah, who doesn't know that? But then he talked about he mentioned the play Hamilton. You know what I mean? And I remember that thing, that stupid the horror show of a play. And it started me thinking about a few things. And Alexander Hamilton, if you might not know, and I don't remember when this happened, but this was post Revolutionary War. Alexander Hamilton was shot and killed in a duel in Weehawken, New Jersey, which is, I don't know, like 20, 30 miles north of where I am right now, by a man named Aaron Burr. And Alexander Hamilton was George Washington's private secretary, but he advocated for a central bank, and he advocated for the newly formed government of the United States to borrow money to go into debt to European bankers in order to establish the credit of the United States. And he had a lot of enemies, and Aaron Burr was one of them. And so Aaron Burr and he decided to have a duel, just like the old, back to back, walk away, single shot pistols, boom. And this happened up in Weehawken. Aaron Burr, America's last gunfighter, man. He shot and killed Alexander Hamilton. And they remade in 2016, 2017, 2018. They're supposedly a Broadway play written by some Puerto Rican guy who was inspired by all of this. I don't know why a Puerto Rican guy writes a story where everybody's black and they're all rapping. So Alexander Hamilton's a black dude and he's a rapper, and Aaron Burr is a black rapper, and they're in the colonial costumes, but they're rapping these lines, and it's a ridiculous mischaracterization of everything that happened historically. But in looking at the video that this Bright Insight channel was promoting, I looked through the comments. I looked through the comments to see what's going on, and I even comment on videos, not because the reason why I do that. I comment on videos that are obvious propaganda videos and stuff is because I'm hoping somebody like me sees, is going to see this, stumble across this, look in the comments, and it's going to spark some insight. So somebody wrote in the comments that, this was promoted in the play Hamilton. He's the founding father without a father. He supposedly was of uncertain parentage from Scotland. Well, there are people, a bunch of people at the time thought that Alexander Hamilton's real name was Alexander Levine, and that he was Jewish, obviously, and an agent of the Rothschilds. And I'm thinking that's very likely true, because after Aaron Burr shoots and kills Alexander Hamilton / Levine in this duel up in Weehawken, and Aaron Burr at the time, he's the vice president of the United States. He's literally the vice president of the United States. And he gets into a duel, and he was from New York State. He was indicted for murder in both New York and New Jersey, which he eventually returned. He went on a tour around the country. Obviously the United States was not as big back then. It only went out there about Louisiana. But he went around to talk to a bunch of people about trying to do something, to make some political changes, and he couldn't find any traction. But he comes back to New York and New Jersey and beats both murder cases, because the murder cases are bullshit. It's not murder, it was a duel. But it shows the level of power that the bankers had even back then, that they could reach into the courts and get not one state, but two states to put out an indictment for murder on something that was obviously not murder, right? That was obviously a fair fight, or at least Alexander Hamilton had a chance. If he could turn and aim his pistol fast enough and straight enough, he would have killed Aaron Burr. But Aaron Burr, being the better gunfighter, won the day. So I was thinking about that, and I'm like, well, the play's not going to show this, and the play's not going to show that. And so, the founding father without a father, the issue is not who his father was, as we all know. The issue is who his mother was, right? That the chosen people have a matrilineal, that your lineage goes through your mother. So that's what determines who and what you are. So I was thinking about Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton. And to make a long story short, let's continue with the story. Eventually, Aaron Burr returns to the New York area, and he decides to get married. Okay, and he's like at an advanced age, so he decides to get married. And 4 months into the marriage, his wife files for divorce. She wants to divorce him, and she wants nothing to do with him. And who's her divorce lawyer? Well, you might find this a little surprising, but it's Alexander Hamilton Jr., the son of the guy he shot. Just happens to be his wife's divorce, right? So now there's a divorce proceeding, and he's trying to make a bunch of things happen. He's trying to raise money to do a bunch of things because he feels like America is slipping out of control, or it's falling under the control of foreign powers, and he wants to try and save it. It doesn't really work out for him. Eventually, he comes back. He dies on Staten Island, and I used to live on Staten Island. He died on Staten Island, but he's buried in Princeton, New Jersey, which is some miles south of me. And I put all this stuff together at the beginning of the week, and I know when there's a state highway I drive past, and I know when I'm passing the town of Princeton. There aren't a whole lot of signs. They don't really want someone like you, some of the plebs, to know that Princeton, you just make a left and go a mile down that road, you'll see the lake where they do the rowing, and you'll see all the other, the ivy-covered stone the buildings and churches, and it looks like an Ivy League school when you go into Princeton. So, but as I was driving past there, and I thought about this whole thing, I was like, Aaron Burr was the last American gunfighter. You know what I mean? He the war that they thought was over wasn't over. He he did what needed to be done. And I just when I got to the traffic light where we have to stop, where Princeton is, I said, evening, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for your service, And I laughed like a mental case in my car, and I drove home. But I think about that. I drive past Princeton a lot when I come back from Virginia. That's the way I come back from Virginia. So I will be giving a salute to Vice President Aaron Burr for his service in the cause of freedom. So, okay, that's a history lesson and a cultural thing, and you're like, okay, so what's the big deal? Where, what does this have to do with today? It has a ton to do with today, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how the play Hamilton didn't come out of nowhere, right? There's no organic fame, and there is no organic wealth. There are people you don't see. There are forces you don't see that create these trends, that shape opinions, that get everyone to say, "Oh my God, you have to see the play Hamilton." Blah 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 blah. So who's behind the play Hamilton? I made a quick video. What does it say? It's like 1 minute and 4 seconds. So here's who pushed the play. So here's a video I'm making of a news article showing that the Rockefeller Foundation announces $6 million in additional funding for 100,000 inner city students nationwide to go see Hamilton. This was June 23rd of 2016, back when when the play Hamilton was popular. And as we all know, it was a remake of a wild distortion of history that had the entire cast being black rappers and not white founding fathers. But the Rockefeller Foundation, one of the 6 families that own the Federal Reserve Bank, they were responsible for what's basically called papering the room. They paid for people to just show up and see this nightmare of a play. Okay, so the Rockefeller Foundation funded across the country, just paid for people to show up in the theater to create a hit, right? And you could say, well, they're the Rockefeller family and they got stupid money and they're into whatever theater and arts and stuff, and that's total bullshit. You know what I mean? To try to bring live theater to the hood, that's not going to work, right? So we got to go into what's happening and how this fits in with Bitcoin, how this fits in with you. So let's go with, I showed this guy before. I don't know, just so you understand that Bitcoiners, people like me, fanatics like me, understand more or less what's going on, and we're trying to make trying to make it clear to other people, but you're gonna hear it or you're not gonna hear it. But anyway, this is 50 seconds of a guy who does he know all the details that I know? Probably not, but he knows enough, and you'll hear that this guy echoes the sort of things that I say.
There's going to be an evil alliance between governments, Ethereum, all the shit coins. You're already starting to see this with the proof of stake narrative. You're already starting to see it. Proof of work is really bad, but there's this alternative that has never been tried and tested, proof of stake, that uses 97% less energy. Come on now. Are you trying to tell me that's a coincidence? That's not a coincidence. That's a social attack on Bitcoin. And that is what we're up against. We're up against this monstrous machine that has controlled people and humanity for over 400 years, literally slowly sucking the lifeblood out of them through debasement. That is what we're up against. And there's a lot of powerful people that have a lot to lose if Bitcoin wins.
If Bitcoin wins. Okay, so what? Bitcoiners, we're conspiracy theory minded. Well, let's talk about how the economy runs. The next video I'm going to show a guy named Max Kaiser. He's like an OG in Bitcoin. He was a Wall Street guy who was actually buying Bitcoin when it was $1, and he convinced a lot of people to buy into it when it was $500. But Max, he says some dumb stuff, but he's really wrong on the cultural stuff a lot of times, way off. But here's Max explaining to you central banking and the economy, and how all this is going to come together.
When the central bankers and Al Greenspan and others, or Ben Bernanke or Jay Powell says, we have the right to engage in moral hazard. We have the right to bypass ethics, morality, and the legal system to protect the functioning of these markets and to protect the liquidity of these markets. What that's done is created an economy and a society based on fraud. So there's very little now in America that's not tied to Wall Street and therefore tied to fraud. The medical industry is now entirely fraudulent. It's been commodified and securitized. All of banking obviously has been securitized and runs on a business model of fraud. The agricultural industry, the industrial industries, all of the sectors of the economy are tied to some degree to their cash desk, where they squeeze out extra profit, engaging in fraud. As the dollar loses world reserve currency, Brady, the problem is that other countries are saying, you know what, maybe we don't need America. Maybe we don't need the US dollar. So in this crisis, the difference with this crisis, Brady, is that there's no coming back. The inflation we see now is not going to reverse.
The inflation we see now is not going away. So Max is good. He's good with the economy stuff. And the point of the Federal Reserve intervening to keep the market going is critical, because the Federal Reserve controls Wall Street, and people move back and forth between Wall Street and the Federal Reserve and the highest levels of the U.S. government. And they have publicly stated they have the right to do whatever they want, no matter what the fucking law says. And this is not good. Now, because it's going to create all kinds of problems. So what are they looking to do? They're looking to do a couple of different things, but let's talk about was it this one? I think it's this. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go. I'll tell you what. Talk about an evil alliance between big business and government, and how they're going to decide what you see and when you see it. Here's an interesting bit that ties into crypto and all the stuff that's going on right now.
Is Binance next to fall after FTX? Here's the truth circulating the claims online. There have been reports suggesting that the US-based versions of FTX and Binance were both attempts to deceive US regulators and fly under the radar of the more strict American regulations at the customer's expense. Shortly after the creation of Binance.us, Forbes magazine published a report claiming that they had received a leaked document named Tai Chi, which suggested that Binance.us was a ploy to trick US regulators into focusing on the compliant local exchange, while the parent exchange Binance Binance went free to do its business. Binance responded by suing Forbes for defamation, only to drop the lawsuit a few months later, and then in February of 2022, Binance tried a different track. They invested $200 million into the parent company of Forbes to gain leverage and to avoid any future bad press. Fast forward to December 17th, 2022, we now see more evidence that Binance and Binance.us are acting as one when Binance halted withdrawals of USDT, which I'll go over in part 2, so make sure to like and follow for more.
Okay. So the world's largest crypto exchange is a fraud and is trying to, somebody leaked that, and they're going to make sure that that story dies and your attention is focused elsewhere. Okay, so what? So the Rockefellers are funding this weird stuff, and this, Binance and these other, SPF, they're just crooks. They're just the standard Wall Street crooks, and not just the standard Wall Street crooks, because here's where this ties into. Well, let's do this. Here's what it ties into, and then we'll see what the future looks like. Okay, now here's a news article: Digital Currency Initiative, Project Hamilton, building a hypothetical central bank digital currency. And at the bottom, I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a video from the Boston Fed. Okay, so yeah, this is Project Hamilton, building a hypothetical central bank digital currency. What a coincidence, huh, Goy? That's pretty coincidental, right? Look at that. Okay, what do we know? We know that Sam Bankman-Fried, who's recently been in the news, his hijinks in the last week crashed a bank called Silvergate. The entire market's crashing over the weekend. Actually, on Sunday, the Treasury Department and the Fed said we're gonna cover all the depositors' losses. We're not gonna cover the bank's losses, but the depositors' losses. Don't worry, nobody's gonna lose any money. There's gonna be no bank failures, no bank runs. So little Sam Bankman-Fried and his $10 billion fuck up is about to destroy the entire stock market. And so the Fed had to come out and try to calm people and say, listen, we're just going to print money. We're going to throw a shit ton of money into the market. Everyone's going to be made whole. No one loses money here. Okay. And the reason why, of course, they had the Federal Reserve, mandarins that you've never heard of talk about this is because if they had Joe Biden tell you like everything's going to be fine, forget about it. People would have been jumping out of their windows. So, at the heart of this is Sam Bankman-Fried's shenanigans, and which were tied into Silvergate Bank, which is tied into a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, Sam Bankman-Fried had not one but 2 degrees from MIT. What does MIT have to do with this? Here we go. And here it is. Sam Bankman-Fried's alma mater, MIT, where he graduated with not 1 but 2 degrees, and where both of his parents taught, is part of this technical research for a hypothetical central bank digital currency. There he is, right at the bottom, Alexander Hamilton. MIT at the heart of this. MIT, Project Hamilton, the Rockefellers. It's all right there. It's all out in the open, but people don't put it all together. And it took me all of about 12 minutes to figure this out. So yeah, this is if you know what to look for, this stuff is pretty easy to find. This stuff is pretty easy to find. All right, so what? So you see, well, so what? What could the possible outcome of this be? So what? They're going to create a digital dollar, blah 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 blah. I said they're not ready, but here's why China matters, and here's how China fits into this whole thing. Because if you pay attention to China, you should understand that China is a test bed for what's going to happen in America.
With some in the US government pushing for a CBDC, let's talk real quick about China and what they're doing with their CBDC.
China's central bank could put an expiration date on the digital money, similar to how lottery winnings have to be spent before a certain date.
They can actually set an expiration date for when you have to spend your money by, essentially taking out of your hands the trouble of doing something crazy like planning for your future. Don't worry, the government's going to look after you. This is all a twist on an obscure monetary policy known as Gesell currency, expiring money, which gives the government a heightened degree of control. Now, the US already does something like this with inflation, meaning we are more likely to spend more since our savings are worth less over time. When you know your money is going to be worth less in the future, why not spend on the latest trend when you want it? Your money is going to be worth 50% less in 10 years anyway. A lot of people blame rampant consumerism on capitalism alone, but I say fiat money holds a lot of the blame. Now, do we want to give governments even more power over what we do with the money that we earn? Opt out, save in Bitcoin for the long term.
Okay. So in China, they're experimenting with digital money that has an expiration date. Don't spend it, it expires worthless. Okay. They're playing with that in China, and that's what they want to do here. When they're ready, and like I said, they're not ready. When they're ready, they're going to get rid of the old dollar and come in with the digital dollar. Okay. And the digital dollar, people think, well, what's the big deal? I have a feeling, at least I think that the exchange rate is not going to be 1-to-1. You know what I mean? So the economy will be fucked up. Everything will be in flames. Inflation will be through the fucking roof. And whoever the president at the time will say, like, oh, we're going to reset things, and we're going to have a 21st century financial system of blah 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 that's worthy of our great country, my fellow Americans. And they're going to say, you just have to swap out your old dollars for the new digital dollars, except it's not going to be a 1-to-1 swap. It's going to be like 100-to-1 swap or 1,000-to-1 swap. You know what I mean? So for regular people, they'll be, who will have nothing anyway, they'll just be deeper in debt. But people who are already millionaires, or people who are like multimillionaires will become millionaires, and millionaires will become 10,000-aires. You know what I mean? They'll have to give up their properties. They'll have to give up everything. And who will they give it up to? These vulture capital firms, the Black Rocks, the whatever, the Vanguards, the various different people who just come and scoop up and take everything that's good. That's what they plan on doing. They're just not ready to do it yet. It's really it's interesting to understand how all this is going to happen. You know what I mean? Because this is how they're going to control everybody forever and ever and ever and ever. Okay. So let's try to be slightly optimistic, James. All right. So let's talk about a couple of things that are slightly more optimistic. Here's a woman that tried to start a bank in Wyoming that was supposed to, they were going to be a Bitcoin-based bank, but they denied her, and now she's actually suing the Federal Reserve. Good for her. I hope she wins $1 gazillion.
Into the vacuum filled scammers, criminals, and incredibly leveraged business models that should never have been allowed to exist. And the markets have been vicious in burning that all down, and good riddance to it all. If in the absence of regulation, we see the worst of humanity take advantage of other human beings, then how do we get from where we are today to a hyper Bitcoinized world that the purists would like? And here's my answer. We need to build the infrastructure first, and we're building it.
Building it in the face of massive hurdles and headwinds. First, they ignore us, then they laugh at us, then they fight us, then we win.
And that's the way it's going to go. Because if you're doing anything else, anybody that thinks that anything cultural, they will make or destroy. You know what? They will raise someone up or throw them down as they see fit for their own reasons and their own purposes. I mean, that's kind of a statement of the blindingly obvious, but the only people with a plan on what to do about this is Bitcoin people. Well, you're waiting for the ghost of Adolf Hitler to come rescue you from, the Mexicans and the fucking Indians and the whatever, the street shitters and the beaners and the fucking chopstick jockeys. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to happen, right? And the fact that you cannot cope with this reality and the fact that you just go along with the current system basically makes you at best dead weight, but really you're picking a side, and you're picking the wrong side. So what else? I think they got I think I got almost everything. Oh well, here we go. Just to explain that this SBF guy, it's not some small thing. He's tied into to MIT, which is tied into the Boston Fed, which is tied into the Rockefeller Foundation. All of this stuff is all tied in, and it's not just SBF by himself.
So here's a much more recent story about Sam Bankman-Fried's father, who is a professor at MIT and a specialist in tax law, is up to his eyeballs in his son's legal drama. So the idea that Sam Bankman-Fried has just happened to wander into all this and steal $10 billion, and that he's not part of something much bigger that's not being publicly discussed is beyond naive.
Okay, so what do I think all this means? They're looking to digitize everything, but they're not ready in a number of ways. All the stuff they already own is currently priced and tied to the old dollar. They're going to have to digitize or something all of their real estate, all of their everything that they hold. Because when they do the transition from old dollar to new dollar, they're not going to lose. They're just going to win. It's just going to increase their wealth. But I think Sam Bankman-Fried and his family and a bunch of other people, all of whom are tribe members, are working on this project, and they're not getting what they want. They're not succeeding. And part of the reason why is because I think it's very hard digitally to do what they do currently with paper money, right? When they print paper money, they know when they're going to print. They know when the date they're going to print is. And they know that the inflation is not going to hit for 3 months or 6 months or something like that. So they print the money, then they borrow money from the banks at zero interest, and they buy something that is not US dollar based. They buy something like what stocks or real estate or whatever. And then when that flood of money hits the economy and causes inflation, their stock goes up or the value of their real estate goes up or whatever it is. I have a comment. We have people in here. Virgil Doc, Purple Heart, good evening, sir. Welcome to the show. So what they can do with paper money is they can play a lot of games, you know what I mean? Because they can time it really well. But if the money goes purely digital, if the US dollar goes purely digital, the headaches around the world, you think of all the countries that are holding bonds, the Saudi Arabians are holding bonds, the Chinese are holding bonds, England, Japan, they're all holding American bonds. What do you do about all that old paper? How do you can't just make it worthless because then the whole world will go against you. So navigating this super complicated problem is way more difficult than they think it is. And it's going to take a lot longer than they think. But more than that, they're going to have to do, if they're going to have expiring money, if there's going to be no more banks, right? There's going to be no Chase Bank. There's going to be no Wells Fargo. There's going to be no whatever your local bank is. There's just going to be the Federal Reserve, and each individual has an account at the Federal Reserve that they can turn on and turn off whenever they want, which they certainly want that. Where they can make your money expire, you got paid, but you tried to save money for your kid's birthday or some special occasion or whatever, and you know what, the dates didn't line up exactly right, and they'll just make your money expire worthless. And little tiny Tim doesn't get a birthday cake for his birthday. You know what I mean? So, and think of how badly that'll fuck with people's heads. So they want to be able to do that, but how do they do that digitally? How do they get the head start on everyone? Because if you flood the system digitally with money, then inflation happens immediately. Where are they going to get the dollars to borrow before they need a back door so they can cheat? You know what I mean? Because it's all about them getting ever richer and more powerful and taking more and more and more from you. So they've got that system down now with the paper money. but I don't think they haven't figured out at all how it's going to work digitally and how to make sure that no one can do to them what they're doing to you. So they can stay in charge forever and ever and ever. So because this problem is way more complicated than even the dudes at MIT can figure out, because they have to build in corruption, but only for some, but only for a few. This is them really trying to do something that's almost impossible. The plus of that is that's great for people that's great for Bitcoin, because I don't know if you noticed, we were like at 19 and we pumped like 24 in 2 days. Sooner or later with the inflation, tomorrow's going to be the inflation number. It's going to come out 8:30 before the market opens. And I'm guessing it's going to be high, and I'm guessing the market's going to tank. It's just going to drop. And there's people going, well, I don't care about the fucking stock market. I don't give a shit. I'm not a stock guy. Whether you like it or not, the stock market is considered the measure of the economy. So if the stock market is tanking, the economy is tanking, the Biden administration is tanking, it's possible, although it's not very likely, it's possible that the politics could slip out of their control, right? I don't think they have, like, they're not going to put Tulsi Gabbard. There's nobody they have that's an alternative to Biden. They got to ride Biden out to the end. You know what I mean? To 2032 or 2028, whatever the hell it's going to be. They got to ride him out to the end. So you can't have things fall apart on his watch. Everything has to be the greatest, the best ever, more jobs, more this, more that, and low inflation. But it's impossible because every time the market dips, they flood it with money, and the market dips and they flood it with money. And then little Sammy Bankman-Fried comes in and plays his stupid get caught with the hand in the cookie jar fucking game, and literally almost destroys the entire U.S. economy, almost destroys the entire U.S. Stock market, and that would destroy the world economy. So, it's like I don't know, like some kid took his dad's keys and drove the car around the block and crashed into the neighbor's fucking porch or something like that, and then he runs home going, "Oh, mom and dad will fix it." But the bottom line is that guy's going to jail for 1 million years because he very nearly fucked up the entire thing, and it shows how delicate the situation really is, and how they don't have a clue as to what they're doing, and that's an opportunity for people like us to win, people like me to win. But the majority of people out there who are not smashing up the like button, by the way, we have to put the question on screen. Have you smashed up the like button? Probably Virgil Doc Purple Heart will smash up the like button and no one else will, because I had like 5 viewers before and now it's dropped because everyone's like, oh, I don't want to hear anything about money because, money's like an adult subject, and these are children who want to hear that Hitler's going to come rescue them from the Jews and the Negroes and the beaners and the chopstick jockeys, you know what I mean? And the street shitters are all going to be magically blown out to sea when Adolf Hitler comes back to town, But there's that people are deeply delusional about stuff like this. I can't help that. When I drive around and I see like dudes in pickup trucks with the "Let's Go Brandon," like the whole "fuck Joe Biden" thing. Virgil Doc Purple Heart in the chat, please smash the like button. A true supporter of this show. So thank you, appreciate that, Virgil Doc. But the point is, if you still believe that the people you vote for work for you or have a program, listen, their program's handed to them from somewhere above. You know what I mean? Their cabinet is decided for them. Doesn't matter who you vote for, right? The central bank's always going to win. And if you're not fighting the central bank directly, and only Bitcoiners are doing that, then basically you're helping to enslave humanity. I mean, at the bottom line, That's the way a lot of us look at things, and that is a good way to look at it. As a matter of fact, where are we at? Where's a guy? Where's the philosophy guy? He's I don't know who this guy is. He's like a philosophy guy, but I'm not the only person who thinks like this and talks like this. And what we do, aside from run for president in Argentina and make the economy work in Nigeria and other places where it's not really working, is we think about the future in a positive way. But take a look at this guy.
My own stance towards all of these alternative cryptocurrencies is just to ignore them. I actually take no stance at all on what will happen with their prices. I just don't see them as ethical money. I don't see them as anything revolutionary and new like Bitcoin. And I don't see them as worth my time. Like, I'm a philosopher. Why am I in Bitcoin at all? It is because I see a possibility here to make the world a better place and to be a part of it. I would not do that if it were a short-term game to enrich myself and others. What's weird for me is Bitcoin is actually a realm in which I can do philosophy and be a philosopher. It's like a venue in which you can think about what's good in life and what's worth pursuing and how to build a fair, just, hopeful, abundant future. That I don't get from anything else but Bitcoin, not even close. Bitcoin's the only one that gives me that opportunity, and that's why I'm in it.
So there's a pretty smart guy who's trying to think about who looks at the world, sees how cruel and unfair it is, and thinks, well, how can we make it better, right? And the current method of printing counterfeit money and using that to buy real assets, and then squeezing every last drop of value out of those assets, that's not working for most of the planet. And if you want to flip that, if you want to flip the tables, if you want to change that, well, what are you going to do, right? Voting for the red team, blue team, we all know that that's a waste of time. That's not really going to happen, okay? The age of when you could go out and shoot the agents of central bankers is gone. You know what I mean? Aaron Burr, God bless him, the patriot, Aaron Burr, did the work. You know what I mean? I think he's probably the last elected official who put his life on the line for what he believed. You know what I mean? Certainly Thomas Jefferson did that. So when you think about somebody who is willing to go toe to toe, in the era of Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, obviously it was kinetic. You know what I mean? There was gunfire involved. Today we don't want to do that, right? Because that's really you're going to lose. You're going to end up like Hamburg. So what you want to do is find a way to subvert these guys and reduce this guy's power. And what are you going to do? You can buy gold coins and hope that that works for you in the long run, but it's very difficult to move gold around the world. It's in fact impossible. So if you're not actively subverting the method of their control, essentially you're going along. You know what I mean? The people who were subscribers to this channel when all I did was talk about the fact that the small hats are horrible people. A lot of people know that the small hats are horrible people. They don't know it's the small hats. They just go, the worst of humanity, and they show a picture of Sam Bankman-Fried, and I laugh like a maniac because this is one of those selective attention things. You know what I mean? They're right up against it, and they just don't see it. They just don't notice that everyone's named Himmelfarb or Greenblatt or Lipsitz or whatever. But the people that are doing what I'm doing are all rowing in the same direction and for the same reason. And like I said, nothing's beyond our reach. And the more they fuck up, the better it is for us, because we stay consistent. You know what I mean? The consistency and the fact that Bitcoin still works. Okay, what the exchange rate is, it's 19,000, it's 25,000. That's unimportant. The fact that you can send value across the planet in 10 minutes and no one can stop you is huge. And this is, I don't think enough people understand how big it is. One of the guys who does understand how big it is, that guy Michael Saylor, who, by the way, also an MIT guy, but like a much more engineer-oriented person. But he's trying to explain to people, and he comes off as a bit visionary. He comes off as a bit esoteric. So I'm going to give you a clip of him. It's going to be 53 seconds. So it's going to be a little bit like, again, this is him trying verbally a number of different ways to explain the ideas to you of why Bitcoin is different than anything else that there's ever been in the history of humanity.
When you encrypt monetary energy on the Bitcoin network, it's like achieving escape velocity out of the gravity well. Throw a baseball on a baseball field, it goes a couple of 100 feet. Get out of the gravity well, throw the baseball, it'll go around the earth forever. So how much more distance do you get out of the baseball if you pay the price of getting out of the gravity well? It's not like 10 times better. It's not 100 times better. It's not 1,000,000 times better. It goes to infinity and it never stops. And that's the breakthrough that people don't get. It's like, what could I do if I had vacuum and I was rid of friction? Bitcoin is the most efficient system for channeling energy through time and space in the history of mankind. We've never figured out how to channel energy with no impedance and channel energy with no loss.
Okay, so we're talking about channeling energy. That Bitcoin is digital energy, and you can send it forward in the future. You could will it to someone else, and there's nothing else like that. He makes it for people who don't like finance, but the world, like I said, money controls most things, and it touches everything in the world and controls most things. But if you take, if you pour your money into the stock market or real estate, there's a number of problems. One, you don't control the stock market, right? It can rise or crash. You can make the wrong pick, and that's pretty easy. And you could lose your money. You know what I mean? And you can't pass it down to your children or your grandchildren. If you say, well, I'll buy land. People thought, well, I'll buy land. And from the 70s through the 90s, buying land was a good idea. But you buy land, you pay taxes on that land every year. The current economic system is you pay taxes on that land every year. So even if you leave it to your grandchildren, you know what, whatever the value of that land was, whatever the increase was, has been cut severely because you had to give money to the state in order to keep that land. And if the state really wants to, they'll just take it from you. They'll just eminent domain, boom, we took your land, and what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? They give you pennies on the dollar, if that. So when Saylor talks about what is the challenge of how do you take your hard work, the value you create, and pass it on to your children or your grandchildren, like how do you do that without there being a penalty, without there being a cost, And he's convinced, and I'm convinced as well, that it's Bitcoin, because everything else they can steal from you, they can confiscate, they can destroy. You know what I mean? I'm going to show you a quick. This is an unpleasant video, but this happened in New York a couple days ago. The phenomenon of flash mobs and wilding. This is 2 minutes and 49 seconds. It's a news clip from a couple of days ago. But you're caught at the high end between elite malevolence, and at the low end with an entitlement mindset amongst 13% of the population.
Now take a look at this wild scene right here. This is what happened when a group of teenagers entered a restaurant in Queens over the weekend and decided to just trash it. So now the manager, who's scared for the safety of his restaurant and his staff, thinks they might come back. And he's talking to News 4's John Chandler, who is live outside the mall that restaurant is in College Point. John.
Yeah, and Adam, that video is quite disturbing. It is also perplexing to everyone, including police, and that's because it's not like these teens just came in off the street into the place. They had to take an elevator to get up to the restaurant, which is on the 3rd floor of this mall complex. Now, the manager does not speak English. He told us through a translator that it was a terrifying scene and ordeal. And he said those elevator doors opened on Saturday, surprising everyone as the teens came in and made an absolute mess. It's just before 8:30 on Saturday night when out of the elevators come a dozen teens, disrupting diners, flipping tables and chairs. Manager Tony Hu says the entire incident lasted about a minute. He tells us nobody was hurt, but everyone at the restaurant is rattled. The teens wore masks and hoodie sweatshirts as they stormed through the main dining area, leaving this broken window and more than $20,000 in damages. The incident was over within a minute. The manager said during the course of it, he hid behind the counter and called police. He also instructed his staff not to engage with the group as they ransacked the place, worried for their safety.
They took an elevator 3 floors up to do what they did, and then took an elevator 3 floors down and left with no money, no nothing, just to wreak havoc.
Councilwoman Vicky Palladino stops by to check on Fish Village. She says at least 50 cops were just added to her district, but still more are needed.
With incidences like this, it warrants more police.
And as the kitchen keeps busy with lunch orders, staff at Fish Village keep an eye on the door. The manager does admit that, sure, he is concerned for his safety and his staff's safety if this group does come back. They left after the...
That's enough. So you get the idea, right? There are certain groups that can literally go in, do whatever the fuck they want to do. They can destroy your business, cost you 25 grand in a minute, right? None of them are ever going to be arrested. None of them are ever going to be punished. Think about that random fucking terror. Think about this. You go, oh, well, that's New York City. Trust me, it's in smaller cities too. It's in Philly, it's in Miami, it's in other places. And those people who did that, they will post videos to their Instagram, to their Facebook. They will Snapchat it or whatever. And this trend will go round and around and around. This time, nobody was hurt. Nobody was killed. But what if they decided they wanted to rape the waitresses? What could you have done? You know what I mean? What could anybody have done to stop them? The idea that you are going to, that there will be a civilized fucking normal life going forward is an antiquated idea. You're going to have to adapt to a very different world, a world where if you're not paying attention, or if you're paying attention to the wrong thing, shit's going to appear out of nowhere. Bad shit's going to appear out of nowhere, you know? And it will destroy small businesses. You know what I mean? That you'll only be, the only food you'll be able to get is like whatever is goy slop, McFood. You know what I mean? There'll be, you know, some corporate place with a tiny, like a ghetto window. You know what I mean? That they can't shoot through and reach through and to grab the cash register, and they'll lock the doors, and you know they'll lock the staff in at, you know, to work, and then only let them out in fucking, you know, like leaving a spaceship, you know, unlock this door, go into antechamber, and then wait, and we unlock the outside door. And you think, well, who the fuck would live like that? Well, if you got rent to pay, you're going to do what you got to do, right? You don't own anything. You don't have a chance of owning anything because the people who run the economy keep fucking cranking up that fucking money printer and making you work harder and harder, longer and longer, for less and less and less. That's what the future really looks like. And all the politics and the religious shit, it's all bullshit. You're just a complete waste of your fucking time. If you're not focused on what am I going to do to counteract this, then you're lost. You're 100% fucking lost. And there's been tons of people in the history, you know, in the history books, who did not see these giant things coming, and this is coming. Whether it's, you know, commercial rents being like, you know, like choking a business owner so that he can barely make a profit, and then, you know, he has to cross his fingers that he didn't piss the wrong group off. We all know who the wrong group is, right? It's basketball Americans, and they can do whatever the fuck they want to do. There's a reason why the play Hamilton was all basketball Americans, because they have to deliver your message. You know what I mean? The people that we cannot touch right now. People that we know, some of us, we know who they are. They decide who are the moral exemplars, who are the moral, the spiritual, the fucking whatever exemplars of the culture. You know what I mean? They decided. The reason why they decide is because they control the incentives. And if you're not, the only way to fight them is to opt out. That's the only way it's done. That is the only way it can be done. Now, the people like myself, Michael Saylor, the philosophy guy, whatever, Caitlin Long, there's other people I showed. Oh, you seem like you look like crazy people. Well, maybe we are crazy people, but we are actively doing something in our daily lives to fight back against this. Okay, and you're not. And if you're not fighting back against it, you basically acquiesce to it. You know what I mean? You acquiesce to it. You're not willing to fight. And when I say fight, again, I'm not talking about physical violence. I'm talking about destroy the base of their power, which is these green pieces of paper, these slavery coupons, you know, this fiat currency that we call money, that we exchange back and forth for goods and services. If you're not actively subverting that system by exchanging that counterfeit for something that cannot be counterfeit, then you're not resisting anything. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what fucking book you read. Oh, I read a book by a guy who died from syphilis. I read a book by a guy who died at 81 years old, who's a fucking virgin. Or, you know, I'm waiting for the fucking return of King Arthur. Or like what, you know, you want to be a delusional retard in a fucking corner. That's not a good fate. I suggest you choose a different fate for yourself. You know, while you're sitting, you know, with your brightly colored fantasies, waiting to be rescued by some fucking, by some magical hero from fucking history who's dead. That's not going to happen. Okay. You need to start making choices about what you're going to do and what you're going to pay attention to. And since there's literally, it's one of the things when I talk about, I drive past Princeton and I said, you know, thank you for your service, Mr. Vice President. I also drive through Trenton. Okay. Trenton, which was there was a Battle of Trenton, with I think George Washington part of it back in the day. But there's a bridge. I should have shown it. There's like this little bridge. It's a railway bridge from back in the days that they put a big neon sign across, right? And Trenton used to be a manufacturing city. They used to make, I don't know, there was like tool and die companies used to make all kinds of shit. Anyway, they had a city slogan. This was back before the city was destroyed by Dindus. The city slogan was, Trenton makes, the world takes, right? Meaning that everyone in the world wants these valuable, high-tech, valuable, high-quality things that Trenton produced. So this, this is big fucking neon letters, like, I don't know, 15, 20 feet high. I don't know how fucking tall they are on this railway bridge. So as you drive past on the highway, if you look to your left, you see that, you know, and they used to have them lit up different colors. Well, for the last couple of years, they've been lit up yellow and blue, right? The Ukraine war colors. You know what I mean? And there's another place when I'm passing, there's a bridge, there's a couple of bridges in Philly, like the Ben Franklin Bridge and the Commodore Barry Bridge or whatever. Anyway, you drive around and I look and they're lit up yellow and blue. You know what I mean? Or I look across the water into Camden, New Jersey, and there's an apartment building with lights around the roof of it that are yellow and blue. You know what I mean? The level of propaganda is everywhere. I mean, it's everywhere all the fucking time. And if you think you're going to escape this, you're beyond naive. You need something. You need a belief system, a way of thinking about the world, a way of piercing the bullshit that that is kind of unshakable. And I got to tell you, kids, politics ain't it. You know what I mean? Putting your faith in human beings to do what's almost impossibly fucking hard, for very little incentive is a recipe for disappointment, right? And you don't want to waste your life. You get one fucking life. Try not to waste it hoping that this guy will be a good guy, hoping that this guy will fulfill his promises, hoping that this political party will not be corrupted. That's never going to happen. You have to understand that you need to create something entirely new that they don't control and they can't stop. And the only thing right now, like it or not, that fits that bill is fucking Bitcoin. You don't understand it and blah, blah, blah. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm not here to explain it to you. I'm not here to fucking convince you. You know what I mean? I suggest you do what I'm doing, but you really don't have to. Like, you could just sit on the sidelines and wait to see who the winner's going to be and then go lick the winner's boots. But that's not a great strategy ever, like ever, historically ever. And it's going to be a really poor strategy in the future because no one's going to care about that. Like, no one's going to care that you come up like, yeah, I was on your side the whole time. No one's going to fucking care because there will literally be a world full of fucking bootlickers. There will be a world full of sycophants. There will be a world full of ass kissers. You know what I mean? And that has very little value. Okay. In order to create things of lasting value, right, you have to you have to have a currency that lasts. You know what I mean? You have to have something that can't be debased and can't be stolen while you're sleeping or while you're attending your business. You don't see that yet, and everyone's still looking to past solutions that have failed. You want to look to past solutions that have failed? Great. You know what I mean? Good luck to you, but this show is definitely not for you. But the next cultural phenomenon, the next Hamilton play, the next whatever, understand literally every fucking thing you see, and I don't care what it is driven by these people in order to create the world that they want to see. And the only way you're gonna fight back against this is to attack the base of their power, which is money, because everyone needs it, and they will do anything to get it. Anyway, where am I? I'm at 1 hour, an hour and 4 minutes. That's not too bad. I pretty much got through everything I wanted to get through, right? I think I did. I don't think there's anything left. But there was a lot of stuff. I actually even there was a bunch of video I just threw out. I'm like, there's just too much stuff I had this week. Anyway, so let's see what happens. Will the economy fucking melt down between now and the summer? Will the White House panic? Will they announce some super thing to fucking pump up their fortunes for the coming year? And what inflation is going to cause people to do tomorrow. The inflation never comes out. And again, you can pretend you're above economics, and who knows, maybe you are. But here's the thing. The people around you, the millions and tens of millions of people around you, are not above that. They're not above the stresses and those anxieties. And the way that's going to pop out might affect you in a very, very negative way. So think that through. This stuff is more important than you give it credit for. And even though you can't control it, you need to understand what effect it's going to have, or you need to try to understand, try to extrapolate what effect it's going to have, and zig when everybody else zags. Anyway, with that, like I said, 1 hour, 5 minutes. That's long enough. Got through everything. Thanks for everybody for showing up. Remember to smash up the like button. Hit the, have you smashed up the like button yet? Have you smashed up the like button yet? All you viewers, make sure to do it before you leave because it pisses off Google. And anyway, let's see what happens this week, and I'll talk to you guys. Talk to you guys next week. Where's my